Hello and welcome to Labbrite. Today I'm going to show you how to make a huge wax cloth bag such as this. This is not only watertight, but because of this is not only huge and watertight because of the wax cloth, but because of this roll up closing system. You can shrink this down to any size you need. So, if this is something that interests you, like and subscribe, and I'll show you exactly how I made this. I want this bag to become really tough. So I'm using a linen bamboo mixture fabric, canvas binding. This is the same fabric I've made my Viking pants out of. I've ordered a bit more so I could make this bag. And first I'm cutting out the bottom of the bag using the largest round object I found lying around my workshop. Not even on the inside. This used to be the iron belt of some wooden bucket, I believe. I don't know why I even kept this around, but now it came in handy. Cut that out, and then I measure the circumference of my bottom piece so I know how wide the side piece needs to be. Adding 2 centimeters for the seam. So I cut out a rectangle, I think 115 centimeters wide, matching the circumference I used for the bottom, and then as big as I had remaining fabric, which was also about 110 centimeters. So I'm cutting out an almost square piece of fabric. You might just make it square if you are rebuilding this. This will make it a bit easier down the line. And while I'm going to sew this together, I'm getting my beeswax heated up. Could have used a lot more, had to refill several times. Be wary not to put it on too high a heat. Be careful if you do this on open flame on a gas stove or something. This is a potential fire hazard. At the sewing machine I'm using the toughest yarn I have on hand. This is tough enough to sew leather if you have to. And I start by sewing on the bottom to the longer side of the rectangle. Make sure you sew the bottom to the corresponding side with the circumference plus 2 centimeters. It's easy to get this mixed up at this stage, unless you make a square. And I'm going with a fairly tight linear stitch, so I've got a lot of stitches holding this together, and I'm sewing this inside out. And right after the first seam is finished, I'm folding this over once and I'm doing another stitch. This will both hem in the edge of the fabric, though if you really wanted to hem this in, you should zigzag it or fold it over twice. But once this is drenched in wax, it won't unravel on its own. So this folding over is mostly so the stitch, the seam becomes even tougher, and so it becomes more watertight, so there aren't any gaps where water could seep through. And with that done, it's time to close up the side, and this should line up nicely if you manage to pick the right side with circumference +2. And just once again go over with a linear stitch, then fold it over once and do it again. Now for the last stitches, I'm hemming in the opening at the top by folding it once outside and going over it with a linear stitch. And once again, to really hem it in, I would fold it over twice. This is going to be drenched in wax, so I only fold it over once, and that shall be enough to give me a clean edge on the opening that won't unravel. And with that finished, it's time to clean up any lone threads, and then we are back to the table. The wax has melted by now, and you should wear proper safety equipment. Depending on how messy you are, you need gloves and glasses, and you want to do this in a well ventilated room, or preferably outside, and wear clothes you don't really care about, because this can easily stain your clothes and it will be really hard to get the wax out. Basically, don't do it like I did it at all. Do it safely, folks. Learn from my mistakes. I started by applying first the wax and then melting that with a hot air gun so it really soaks into the fabric. And I did that on the first side. All on the first side. It took a really long time. Came to the conclusion that this bag is about the largest piece I'd want to make out of wax cloth. I thought maybe I could make a ground cover out of this stuff, but that would just take too long and take too much wax, which is not especially cheap. So I think I will make my ground cover out of oilcloth, which should be able to make both cheaper and faster. But after doing this side, I found a faster and better way to apply the wax. So on the other side, I applied the wax with the brush and used the heat gun at the same time, which made it easier to control how much wax actually went onto the piece and spread out any excess wax to still uncovered areas. After both sides, after every square centimeter was covered in wax, I warmed the bag back up so I could pull it right side out, inside in, outside out. This was a cumbersome, awkward process, but I really wanted to get the wax into the seams so they wouldn't be a spot where water could leak through. Anyway, after I was done pulling this, the outside out, I spent some time in getting this back into shape and forming this, and in applying wax, more wax and heat gun on any spots where there was too little wax, and apply the heat gun on any spots where there was too much wax and try to spread that out. Basically give it a good and even wax covering all around, especially focusing on the seams. Once I was happy how everything was formed and covered, which took forever, I took a length of rope. This is fairly soft cotton rope, it's more like a shoestring than actual rope. And I cut a length that is twice as long as the opening is wide, and did a little knot on both ends so it wouldn't unravel. Then I took out my leather sewing kit, because now that this cloth is waxed I need my leather needles. And with my leather needle and my leather yarn I proceeded to sew the piece of rope onto the opening, leaving an end at either side. And this finishes the build. Now, to close this, you let out all unnecessary air out of the sack and compact whatever is inside. And then you roll up the top as low as you need to go and pull the rope together, make a ribbon or an easy to open knot, and this will keep whatever is inside good and dry, even if you were to transport it in water. So, thanks for watching and goodbye.